Picture this. You're standing in a field. It's 40,000 years ago. There's no courthouse, no judge in a robe, no lawyer whispering, "Don't say anything." No police, no jury, nothing. And the guy next to you? He just stole your food. Again. Not the first time, not the second. Every single week, he takes more than his share, and everybody knows it. Everybody's angry, but nobody says a word out loud. So what do? You can't call 911. You can't file a lawsuit. There's no system to run to. It's just you, him, and about 30 other people who are all quietly fed up. Here's the crazy part. Ancient humans faced this exact problem for hundreds of thousands of years. And they didn't just wing it. They had a real system, a justice system, a way to hold people accountable, punish the guilty, and keep the peace. No walls, no written law, no courts. And honestly, in some ways, it was smarter than what came after it. So first, you gotta understand how these ancient people actually lived, because that changes everything. They lived in small groups, tiny really, 20 to 50 people max. Everybody knew everybody, and I mean knew them. Your whole life was out in the open. Think about that for a second. There was no other side of town, no fresh start in a new city, no hiding. If you did something shady, people saw it. And if they didn't see it, they heard about it fast. Now, here's the thing that's hard for us to wrap our heads around today. Your reputation wasn't just nice to have. It was life or death. I'm not being dramatic. In that world, the group was everything. Your food came from the group. Your safety came from the group. When you got sick, when you got hurt, when a predator showed up in the dark, the group had your back. So if you wrecked your reputation, you didn't just lose friends. You lost your food, your protection, your future, all of it. That's the foundation. Not law, not police, just this one simple truth. You needed these people and they needed you. And everybody knew it. Now, an anthropologist named Christopher Boehm spent decades studying these groups, all over the world, different continents, cultures that never even met each other. And he found something wild. These groups weren't chaos. They weren't every man for himself. Nope, they were fiercely equal, almost obsessively equal. Boehm called it the reverse dominance hierarchy. Fancy name, simple idea. Look at most animals. Chimps, gorillas, baboons. The strongest one runs everything. The big guy takes the best food, the best spots, and everybody else just deals with it. Power flows down from the top. Ancient humans flipped that completely. In their world, the group controlled the individual. So if somebody started grabbing too much power, too much food, too much control, the whole group turned on them. Together, as a team. And here's the beautiful part. They had stages. A whole step-by-step process for dealing with troublemakers. It started gentle and got serious real fast. Let me walk you through it. Stage 1, gossip. Yeah, gossip. And before you roll your eyes, listen. Gossip wasn't just people being petty. It was a weapon, a tool. It did serious work. Here's how it went. Somebody starts acting up, hoarding food, bullying the weak, being lazy while everyone else pulls their weight. So what happens? People start talking. Not to his face, not yet. Behind his back, to each other. Little conversations. Did you see what he did? Yeah, again. Something's gotta change. And slowly, without any meeting or vote, the whole group builds an agreement. A shared understanding that this person is the problem. So by the time anyone confronts him, it's not one person's opinion, it's everybody's. He can't argue with the whole group. And you know what's fascinating? The troublemaker usually feels it coming. In a group that small, you notice. Conversations stop when you walk up. People share with you a little less. The vibe just shifts. And a lot of the time, that's enough. The guy corrects himself right there. No confrontation needed. That's deterrence, without a single written law, just people talking. But let's say gossip doesn't work. He keeps pushing. Now we hit stage 2, public ridicule. The group calls him out, openly, in front of everybody. They mock him. They name what he's doing. And this stings. Because in a tiny group, getting publicly shamed isn't a bad afternoon you forget about. It's a big deal. It's the group telling you, loud and clear, you're on thin ice now. And there's this thing anthropologists found over and over. They call it leveling mechanisms. Basically, the group refused to let anyone get a big head. Here's my favorite example. Say a hunter makes an amazing kill, brings home a ton of meat. You'd think he'd get praised, right? Nope. If he came back bragging, look what I did, look how great I am, they'd mock him. They'd tease him relentlessly. The meat still got shared. Everybody ate, but the credit, that belonged to the group, not the individual. Why? Because they knew something we sometimes forget. It was never really about the meat. It was about power. And letting one guy grab power was a threat to everyone. Still won't listen? All right, stage 3. And this one's brutal. Ostracism. Getting shut out. Now, today, getting ignored by a group stinks, but you survive. You find new friends, new city, whatever. There are millions of people out there. Back then, being cast out was basically a death sentence. Just a slow one. Think about it. You can't hunt big game alone. You can't stay awake all night watching for predators. You can't carry your kids, treat your wounds, and gather food all by yourself. Nobody can. Group life made survival possible. Take that away and you're exposed. Totally. And it happened in degrees. First, subtle. Food reaches you a little slower. People are a little less available. The warmth just fades. But if you still didn't change, the group had a nuclear option, especially the ones who moved around a lot. They'd just pack up and leave. Move camp overnight and not tell you where they went. Imagine waking up and everyone's just gone, alone, in the wild. That's not a punishment. That's an ending. And that brings us to stage 4, the final one, the one that shocks people the most, execution. Yeah, ancient hunter-gatherers had the death penalty, and Boehm found it wasn't rare. It showed up across dozens of cultures, all over the planet. But here's what matters. It was never one angry person acting alone. Never. The whole group decided, together, same way they handled everything else. Everyone talked, everyone agreed, and only then would a few people carry it out, on behalf of everybody. And that was the whole point. Because if one guy just killed another guy, that's murder, and he'd become the next problem. But if the entire community agreed someone was too dangerous to keep around, that was different. That was justice. The weight was shared by everyone, so no single person carried the guilt. And who got this? Not someone who made one mistake. No, it was the repeat offenders, the serial bullies, the predators, the people who'd been warned, mocked, shut out, and still wouldn't stop. It was always the last resort, never the first. So step back for a second. Look at what we just described. Minor problem, minor response. Big problem, it escalates, step by step, with chances to fix things at every stage, decided by everyone, together, not for revenge, but to keep the peace. Wait a minute. That's proportionality. That's process. That's consensus. That's purpose. That's a justice system, a real one. No, they didn't have a courtroom. No gavel, no robes, no lawyers. But they had the soul of a court. Everything a court is supposed to be. So then, what happened? Why did we build all the walls and the codes and the stone tablets? Well, here's where it gets interesting and a little uncomfortable. Fast forward a few thousand years. Humans settle down, build cities, build states, and they start writing law down. The oldest law code we've ever found, it's called the Code of Ur-Nammu, ancient Mesopotamia, over 4,000 years old, carved into clay. And it was actually pretty reasonable. If you injured someone, knocked out a tooth, broke a bone, you paid a fine. Money for the victim. Make things right. Restore the balance. But that didn't last. About 300 years later, a king named Hammurabi shows up, and you've probably heard his famous rule. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He carved 282 laws into a giant stone pillar, 7 feet tall. It's sitting in a museum in Paris right now. And Hammurabi flipped the whole thing. No more fines. Now the punishment had to match the crime, physically. Break a bone, lose a bone. But here's the part that really gets me. His laws weren't equal. Knock out the eye of a free man, you lose your eye. Knock out the eye of a slave, you just pay a fine. Same injury, same pain, but the law treated them completely differently, based purely on who you were. And that was brand new. That was something civilization added. Now think about our ancient hunter-gatherers, the ones obsessed with equality, the ones who mocked anyone trying to rise above the group. They would have looked at Hammurabi's law and recognized it instantly. It was exactly the thing they'd spent 100,000 years fighting to prevent. The idea that some people matter more than others, that harm to a powerful person counts more than harm to a weak one, they hated that. Their whole system existed to stop it. And then civilization came along, wrote that inequality into stone, and called it justice. Look, don't get me wrong. Written law gave us real gifts, predictability, protection from crazy random rulers, the ability to govern millions of strangers who'll never meet. That's huge. We needed it. But we lost something too. Those ancient people, standing in judgment over the bully who wouldn't quit, they didn't have a courtroom, or a code, or a fancy word for what they were doing. But they had the one thing every court since has been chasing, the genuine agreement of a community that actually cared about the outcome. Everything else, the codes, the courts, the pillars, the lawyers, that was just infrastructure. So next time you picture primitive cavemen, remember this. They had justice figured out, in some ways better than we did. Pretty humbling, right? If you enjoyed this, you know what to do. Smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We've got more forgotten history coming, and trust me, it gets even wilder. I'll see you in the next one.